So let me introduce our next presenter, Craig Sanders, works at Autodesk. He's an infrastructure product specialist with over 20 years experience in government, 4 years at Autodesk with a focus on infrastructure product technology. One interesting fact that you may not otherwise know about Craig is that he just spent $4,000 on ACL surgery for his dog.
Oh,
For the second time. May I introduce Craig?
It's a dog-eat-dog world, and sometimes I'm wearing a milk-bone underwear. Good afternoon, everybody. Why don't we everybody stand up, at least for, give me like a 15-second stand here. Let's, you know, this afternoon crowd, you know, no snoring while we're standing, but let's get a stretch in, please, before we get started.
I need it.
Oh my gosh. All right, thank you. Kevin, do you want to stand? All right, I do appreciate and acknowledge everybody's time here this afternoon. I'm going to go into some trends from infrastructure workflows, if that's okay with you. So I'm going to show examples of visualization from a planner's perspective, a designer's perspective, a visualization expert's perspective, and also from a business owner's perspective. You saw a lot of visualization throughout the day, yesterday, and you probably continue to see more if you stick around. So we show examples of conceptual workflow, working in alternative feasibilities and also in present design realistics. Communicating back and forth from a planner's perspective, conceptually, also into it in the design environment. I'm going to just show some of that in the next 2 hours. Abbreviated. But I was told that one of our presenters, actually two of our presenters are not here, so I thought I'd go into the history of project presentations for you, just to make sure that we're all on the same page here before we get started. These are first primitive tools that everybody is familiar with, that we used in creating our designs. Some of us, I don't want to age anybody, but they might look familiar to some of you. You know, some more design tools. You see the French curve up there. I'm sure some of us still have that particular design tool at home. Then, you know, we started going into some interchange capabilities here and started getting in color, you know, and starting to actually really communicate and visualize what's going on. So you can see it happened. It's nothing new. People have done this before us. Looks like this is kind of the reason why for a diverging diamond interchange here for what's happening here, but also they started showing this visualization capabilities. Let's communicate what's happening here. So it's not unique what we're trying to do here. We've evolved into the today's world where a lot of things are done on paper. And we can all the communication was just making lines and drawing on paper on how it is and showing how it's going to be. Again, that's I think one of the biggest breakthroughs was printing, PDF printing a design on the PDF. I mean, that was power back then. People got it. I mean, hey, can you print this for me? I mean, that was how it was. And I think, Kevin, you mentioned a gal. I think this is that's her husband right there. You know, if you recall, I mean, you didn't get the other photo, but I stole that one from you. But this one, he's totally engaged in what's going on here as well from in a presentation about the public. You know, we've always had these types of presentations where we've conveyed what's going on here. Well, picture this. What about this? Well, it's going to be like this, but we're just imagine this, if you will. That's what's happening. We've all been there. Some of us may be still there. And also, too, well, I mean, this is a very acute example. If you're at a public meeting, I mean, some of us deal with this and we get this, but others, you know, we're citizens. You know, and I look at that and I'm just like going, no. But it's the same representation, but just from a different perspective. It's one of those darn Caltrans projects, Martin.
Isn't that kind of discounting the skill
skill of the civil engineer in communicating to the public, because no civil engineer worth their salt would take a CAD document like that into a public meeting. It would be malpractice.
Yes, in some places this has been done before,
I mean, it's
unfortunately.
funny, but it's not really realistic, is it?
No, not at all. No, and no one's discrediting the skill set of a design engineer. The goal is to represent, okay, if you wanna gain participation, or buy-in from the audience or the stakeholders, people invested, I mean, rather than coming with a plan drawing that I showed previously, you know, giving them something a lot more pleasing to the eye,
I mean, yeah, the schematic role is, they do it because that's what the client wants.
at times, yes.
Here's one more thing, if you don't mind. This level of detail is usually available in the design phase. But when you go to a public meeting, there's still preliminary engineering, which is still prior to the environmental release. And so this type of information, while highly desirable, might not exist at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's an example of a project in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where they're actually, the issue here is that for anybody to go around, they have to go up this way and make a U-turn and come back around. So what they're proposing is to create an overpass to keep it simple, to come back this way, to make it easier for the citizens and people to use that road. And so this is a still photo, or it's talking about creating a 3D rendering of what's being proposed. Again, a little more a flat picture. We still get it, but we understand it a little better with the photo on the right-hand side. So what we're actually going to do is that we're actually going to build this out in a series of videos here that I'm going to show. I asked one of the smart guys to actually do recordings of the video building this out rather than doing this live here, if that's okay with everybody. So what we're going to do is actually going to start with a conceptual drawing here and bring it into our conceptual design tool. We're actually going to showing it. We're using real world coordinates here. This is just starting out, just to show you what's happening here. And we're going to zoom in to Fayetteville, Arkansas, into that particular area. And show that representative of what we were seeing before. And then so here, we're actually going to bring in this is all public data that we're using. We're actually bringing in that photo that you saw before. Everyone saw that photo before. We're actually going to bring in some public building data and some public street data here, and bringing it into this tool. So we're going to use that as our starting platform, baseline to build out of. So what we want to do then is, okay, now that we want to convey what we're going to do, we see it in a photo, but let's actually build out just exactly what we're proposing here so that we can show everybody internally in this meeting, and maybe also externally too, what's being proposed. So right now we're actually going to be sketching a road or an overpass. And I'm a planner in this idea. I'm not the design engineer. You know, we have an idea where it wants to be. This particular tool lets you adjust the geometry, the radius of the curve if you want to. So now that we've gotten that, maybe we know how much height that we want it to be. It's not going to be a tunnel, but we know it's got to go above, and maybe about 16 feet, as we're saying, so that we're going to raise it accordingly. Yes, we realize in this conceptual that there is a pillar in the middle of the road. That's not the design intent. We want to get the ideal here conveyed. So we're raising this up because we know it's going to be a certain height at a minimum of what we're looking for. And this tool allows you to make those adjustments visually here. We're going to raise these abutments up. Let's get those raised up and make those fine-tuned. You can see how simple it is to make these adjustments as we go along. Again, this is not sped up or anything. This is real time where these adjustments are making. And the goal is you don't have to be a design engineer to make these changes. You can, an intern can use this tool and make changes, or to start out with, or anybody else. Here I can look at the profile and make changes as well too, if I want to get that, if probably want to get a little more elaborate here with my math when I'm trying to design. Here I'm actually going to draw out the rest of the road, the rest of the overpass that I'm drawing here. And watch how this, when it connects up, how smoothly it blends in to the contours here. And these are just some examples of the different types of styles of roads. There are a variety of different examples that you can use based on what you want to convey and what type of an environment that you're in. So we're going to go back and let's true up those abutments there. Let's get that off ramp there. Let's get that raised up. And again, this is all for a conceptual perspective. Okay, I think we've got that. But one of the neat things here is that now with this tool, I'm able, with this tool InfoWorks, now I'm able to feed this into my design software. So in this case, it's going to be with Civil 3D, but the value here now is I'm able to pass geometrically accurate data into my design tool. So from a design engineer's perspective, I'm not starting from scratch. I'm not starting from a blank screen. I'm actually going to use some conceptual data that was agreed upon in the planning sessions. All right, so let's take a look at that. If I may. All right, so usually if you're going to design, and like inside your design tool, you might start doing your work, but in this example here, I'm actually going to bring in what we worked with inside of our planning tool. So now I'm a designer. I've been given, okay, now you've got work to do. So now I've got, what do I have? I've got a profile and I've got some ground data. Maybe I'm going to look at some information here. I can make some adjustments here based upon the information that I just received. So okay, those aren't the radii is not correct, but here I'm not starting from scratch. Maybe I might make some adjustments based on what I know how the design's going to be. And so I'm not spending as much time in this area here. And then so I can look at that, I see the ground, I see the profile. So I can look at this and make any type of minor adjustments. I'm not going to make any changes to the ground because it was coming in. I know that was LiDAR data, so I'm pretty solid that that's pretty accurate, so I'm okay with that. Well, I'm going to treat this like any type of a cooking show. So we're going to assume that the design engineer did some work, and now we've got some more work done by the design engineer. All of a sudden, we found out now that this engineer is going to be finding out pretty soon. We've got a 30% design review coming up. You know, but it's not fully complete yet in this 30% design review. Here I'm bringing back the area photo that we saw in the beginning. Just overlaying here, but the corridor's not all the way complete, but I know at least I've got my vertical and my horizontal alignments done, but what I'm going to do then, I'm going to pick up my center line and bring that back into InfoWorks. So then now I'm the design engineer. I'll say, okay, great, these guys are asking for some data to plan for this meeting. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to grab the center line data, I'm going to export that out. I'm going to give that to my planners and my visualization person, let them finish up what they've been sketching up from their previous discussions in preparation for the meeting. All right, so now I'm back over into InfoWorks. What I'm going to be doing now, I'm going to create what we'll call proposals. The first one that I did, we'll call that just your simple proposal. Now I'm going to create another proposal. We'll call this proposal at 30%. So now I've got a different option saved. Then what I'm gonna do then, I'm gonna delete what we created in our initial proposal, because what I'm deleting is something we're gonna bring in that my design engineer has given me. So I'm gonna bring in that particular file. You can see the various types of rows that you can choose from. Alright, so now I've brought in that particular file. We can see, okay, it's a little better design. Again, it's at 30%. You can see that there's no, the pillar has gone away from the middle of the road thanks to my design engineer. But let's actually make this a bridge. So we're actually going to grab some furniture that represents a bridge, and let's drop that over this overpass to make it represent what it's supposed to be. So again, this is probably could be my visualization expert, this could be an intern or even a planner doing it at this stage based upon the information you got back from your design engineer. Now you've got something ready for a 30% discussion. And also taking advantage of our media and entertainment portion of our business, you're able to adjust it for real-time ambient lighting, whether from a cloudy day or it's shadowing, whatever intent you want to convey, you have the capability of conveying that as well.
Where did you get the existing roads? Were they built in InfraWorks? The one?
So the existing roads were public data, just shape files from that Fayetteville, Arkansas site. Just grabbing what's existing and then dropping it. Okay, what's next? So we're back over into our design, and now we're going on. We're furthering in our design. We're with the design engineer, and as he goes along, now we're finally actually going to get. Okay, so now we're actually going to go further into our design, now with the design engineer moving on. So what we should expect now is that now we're actually going to see some solids here. You can actually see some solids representing, so we have a bridge going on. And let's go take a look at that in a little more detail. So just, now the design has gotten more progressed. That looks like a solid, it's like a bridge to me. So the same thing's going to happen is that your engineer is going to get a call and say, hey, yes, we've got a 60% design meeting. Okay, good. Now this time we actually have solids. So that's actually past the solid information. That's kind of step back over to either our visualization expert, our intern, or our planner. Let's give them this information in preparation for that 60% design review. So now we're going to create a third proposal. We'll call this proposal at 60%. And again, we're deleting what we did in the 30% drawing. We're moving that information away. Now we're going to bring in what we did. We're actually going to bring in a bridge from our design engineer. Okay. Now we've got something here for our 60% design, and that's looking a little more like a bridge that we want to looking at as a finished product here, at least at this stage. So now maybe what you might want to do, maybe you might want to create some AVIs or some type of videos to leave behind, or even even before the meeting starts. But with the same concept, you're actually able to then spin, record, make animations based on what you want to convey for your upcoming meeting. So I'm going to zoom in, and then maybe we'll start the orbit. Let's start the orbit. Let's keep it simple. And maybe we start it at 45 degrees. Let's see where it takes us. Again, it's just going to show a change. Okay, that was 45. Let's adjust it to 90. Then we're going to make an adjustment here. Let's make it a 360 to see how it appears, and that tends to be a tad too fast. But looking at the duration, okay, let's expand the duration and slow it down. Let's see where that takes us. Okay, and then we have a slower or spin around. So again, it's whatever you want to convey. It allows you to record this so that you can have your animations to convey what you want to do and convey to the public on a particular project.
I hate to be a noob, but these are things we've been doing in the design process for over a decade. So what classifies it as an innovation?
Well, first of all, I think what's been happening here is that you're actually passing conceptual data over to your design.
Which we've been doing for over a decade in the design process.
Okay.
It's just not as pretty, but between schematic and design, the days goes back and forth. So it's not it's nothing new.
How is it new? The speed? It seems.
Well, I think how we look at this. I'll get back to your question. So from a visual perspective, you're conveying that design intent, what you're planning to do from the public, or in an internal meeting. So you see this visually, and then the results of your visual design can be fed into your design tool.
I mean, this brings in consumer grade attractiveness, but is it anything new in the design process?
No. But from your perspective, probably not, because you said you've been doing this for 10 years. But I think what we're trying to convey here is that from a visual perspective,
Well, I think the civil engineering profession as a whole in transportation has been doing this for over a decade.
Okay. I get that.
Well, no, I think it depends on, I think it's the speed and the turnaround and the quality. Like I said, there are some companies that have a group of people that are, say, visualization experts. They're not engineers or so. They do the pretty pictures, but they put a ton of hours into it. And the issue is, like I said, we would do it for a proposal, to win the project. But every time we have to keep updating it, it was like, it was a painful process. I think this one is allowing you to say, here's the design that's been updated. It is 3D, and I think that's one of the biggest things is that it's not a 2D set of plans.
I mean, I'm not insinuating it's not a useful product. Autodesk has useful products, and so does Bentley, and so does the SRI.
Mm-hmm.
But is it really anything new in the civil engineering profession?
Again, I'm not going to challenge that. You said it was 10 years. You've been doing it. Great. But I think what Jesse had shared too, I think what you just saw here is could be a time savings where people who you're communicating with, or if you're trying to win business, visually, I get it. I see this. Okay, now I'm taking what I've seen visually, I'm feeding that to my design team. They're not starting from scratch. But then they see that visually too, back and forth. That's
assuming that the people selecting me are not also civil engineers.
yes.
How many projects do you see, though, that you get a 3D model that lives through the life cycle of the design process?
That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's
well,
the distinction.
Do you get at the beginning of a civil engineering project
in
you get a
design
3D model?
is pretty typical.
You
The only
get
thing
3D
that
models.
interrupts the process is if you have to stop what you're doing to produce a legacy deliverable that's required in the contract. But in the innovative delivery, they if you can remove those legacy deliverable requirements, the data lives through as a necessity.
How many times do you give a 3D conceptual model to your draftsman to start
There
writing
are
design
there are
documents?
no draftsmen. There's engineers and there's technology and they produce it. There's no, most firms see that they may have like one or two specialized people for the visualization, but in the civil engineering profession these days, the engineers do their own work.
That's the thing about when I see all these things that I've been sitting through the last day, like who's putting in the trees, and who's putting in the barriers, and who's putting in the signs, and who's putting in the lane striping.
And that's
Is
probably
that
not where,
engineers doing that
that's
work?
probably not where it's going to be. It's not the, the landscape architect's going to come in and say, oh, the tree's over here, and then the traffic engineer's they're going to put the sign somewhere else. So, so I guess there's just like we discussed, there's two kinds of visualization. One, the plastic hamburger that you need to win the work, right? The big design build, but that's not necessarily what gets designed and built. The next is the type of visualization that actually supports design and construction to actually do it competently.
Well, I think this kind of ties those together. You get in there and you see all this profile, it gives you all the equations from,
But
stuff you design conceptually.
Except that this is not an accurate representation of the civil engineering design process.
This might be a very appropriate conversation to be had in the context of the CIM VDC meeting that's going to take place after the presentation.
I mean,
Probably a good venue
I'm not trying to
for
be.
this.
I'm not trying to be mean. I mean, it's tough to be a speaker. I've been one too. But this is what these conferences are good for: is to get these uncomfortable questions out because we do have time.
Yeah, no, you need to share and speak your mind. I mean, so I think what we're trying to convey, here's what's possible. Based upon what you do in your business, in your world, you can acclimate it to how it meets your business needs. I mean, so maybe it doesn't mean anything at all for you. I get that, and that's okay. It might be for others. Maybe it just saves time and money. Who knows?
Maybe it is something new,
Sure. I'd argue a few things about this. I think this product's amazing, radical, change the world kind of thing. I think it's going to change the way we all do our work for a few reasons. First of all, as a planning tool, I don't see anything else out there that is a conceptual design tool for planners that is something that people can just sit down and use, that integrates all the different kinds of data that planners need to work with. That's the first point. Second point, I think is really important, is back to this life cycle thing. Maybe if you're familiar with the CAD workstation, you've got a life cycle data view, but this is really for everybody. This is really a enterprise-wide.
But there's lots of tools. It's kind of like some of us like Shed and some of us like Ford.
But this is
Autodesk and Bentley and ESRI. They're hard-working vendors that produce some pretty good products. And
Very
in fact, if you want to use it, they deserve to be paid for it.
But this is a different kind of product. This isn't a CAD program. This is what.
Well,
So what?
there's
Really not like in categories of.
CAD is ink and Mylar thinking. That's
Well,
the
okay,
way
fine. It's not going to replace a CAD seat. It's going to create new opportunities, new users for the same data that we're.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, again, is this is used for, this is what, virtual design and construction. Okay, it's not the pretty pictures, it's not the movie making that you see, what they call the high-end animations, that you put in a lot of time to make it look really good for, the main, general public. This one is, can be used for a design tool. It's something that.
And I guess my point is that they are powerful products, and all these products have the pros and cons. But there's nothing revolutionary there's nothing that innovative about one product versus the Autodesk product or the Bentley product, the ESRI product. They all have their pros and cons, but they're all very powerful, right? Deep inside underneath them is civil engineering practices that are really data focused. I guess the idea that that's like saying, well, you buy Microsoft Word and it'll make you a better writer, which isn't true. You have to learn how to write. And so I'm not diminishing the value of a very powerful product, but but, I guess I don't see how it's a quantum leap more innovative than anybody else's products.
I'm not gonna probably convince you that. So I get that. Well, I'm gonna agree to disagree right here, if that's okay.
Sure.
Craig, I'm with Bentley
And I'd say the same thing to you. You start-
let me speak, Danny, first, if you don't mind. Between Autodesk and Bentley for design and actually for planning, we work with virtually every DOT in the United States. So I'm talking about the owners there. I see very few of them using this type of preliminary design planning tool that allows them to effectively communicate with their stakeholders, what the project is about. And I would say that's worth a lot. Okay, I would say that's worth a lot in terms of expediting decisions and interactive discussions, just like we're having here. I think that's worth a lot. I think if 2 or 3 years from now we had all the owners with the capability to be using a tool like this, whether it's our flavor or Autodesk flavor, it would be adding a lot of value and save a lot of money to the project. So now,
I got to add one more thing. Is speaking now as one of the organizers of the conference, I wish now we had scheduled maybe some more roundtable discussions. But I think in fairness to Craig, we should let him go ahead and finish his presentation. Oh no!
Well, one comment I would make is that it actually takes you back, when I started designing with templates, and there was more of a tactile approach. And when you're manipulating objects, it can become tactile, and that you're manipulating surfaces, rather than doing coordinate geometry, batching it out and seeing what you get. So I really appreciate the ability to manipulate objects, but still, the engineering background, understanding what the coordinate geometry is doing is essential to this, but it's still just another tool, but it's more of a tactile tool, is what I'm saying, and to me that's a more intuitive way to design. Got it. So I think the goal for the planning is just to not have the engineer start from scratch. If you can give him a conceptual to start with, and then so that it can make his job easier, and he can deal with all the geometry and detail he wants to, not having to take his hat on. So be it. As long as we get the design done. I think of the approach is it's the difference between drafting and sculpting. Where you're really sculpting because you're working in all 3 dimensions, even though you're doing it electronically, as opposed to drafting on a 2D surface, either your plan or your elevation or your cross sections. Sure. So with having that tactile sculpting approach is just a more powerful way to leverage the knowledge that you have.
And I'm switched back to being a participant now. So I was actually on the Autodesk product management, industry management team that was making the business case for when this was first being conceived. And so what we found in our research was, when we asked planners what their primary tool was, they had none. We used some Photoshop, we used a little bit of AutoCAD or MicroStation. Sometimes we just do hand sketches. There was really nothing that was a standard tool for the planning profession. And then the other thing, and of course we've done this for years, is that as you get from one phase of the project life cycle to the next, you build up data, it all drops, start over again, and into the design phase, you start building out, and ends up in construction documents, that all drops, and those construction people, it's just a constant loss of data all the way through the process. So one of the goals here was to provide this integrated approach, as it says, where not only are we giving the planners tools where they can, you know, actually see what they're doing and do it easily and not have to use this hodgepodge of applications to do it, but it seamlessly passes over and back and forth with the tools that the designers are using.
I mean, yeah, we certainly wouldn't want to go back to not having the technology any more than we want to go from calculators back to slide boards.
But, you know, I would challenge you to find, you know, any, you know, other than this, anything that, if you went to all, like, the planning departments in the DOTs of the 50 states, getting any kind of consistent answer on what they use as their primary tool, because there is none.
I think there are several driving forces behind the project development. One is, of course, the environmental process, which I think this is part of, right? And then the reality that the design and delivery is being compressed.
Right.
And so one of the things is, of course, not presenting too much detail that would be considered engineering level at this point, because that would be against NEPA, right? But at the same time, there is this pressure, and DOTs are responding to that pressure by doing more design work during preliminary engineering design, which means that use of this kind of tool should blend, you know, itself. I think the product of this should be part of the design process. And I couldn't quite get from here, although I could be completely wrong, if the output of anything you do during the planning and preliminary engineering phase can feed into the 3D design workflow. Is the output of this something that you can plug into the design product, or is it not?
Yeah, so what I showed initially was when you first do the conceptual sketch, it fed that information, you know, without looking at the exact code, fed into your design tool. So then you can, and then so they brought that in, the design information, they brought in the profile data, the vertical.
That you created here.
Yes, yeah, it was brought in.
We took the center line.
That was the center line. That's the, hopefully, what we wanted, hopefully what that's doing is reducing, getting collaboration sooner with people seeing the picture. I get it. Then take that concept, give it to the design engineer. Said, okay, I see this. Let me correct what you're doing to make it a tad more accurate, you know, to represent what we want to do. And that's what the go back and forth is. Then hopefully from that is where people are seeing that, hey, I could save some time, maybe a lot of time, based upon the project that you're working on. It doesn't have to be any type of detailed project like this. It could be just a simple curve. All right. Good dialogue. And don't apologize for speaking your mind. That's okay. And thank you.
Well, that's actually what makes these conferences fun, right?
Yeah. You have to leave now, though, but no.
As a speaker, you don't want to sit there like bumps along.
That's why I had to stand. But in all sincerity, thank you.
You can heckle me next time.
I know. I'm gonna have to find when you're speaking. Get some water balloons. All right. So. How we heard this, I think you shared it from your perspective. Let's take a look at it in this area here too. You know, so we've got this project here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm the general manager of a Red Robin here, and I give away free fries. You guys all know that, but then you guys are making these changes. How's it going to look? Well, one of the smart guys on my team, he created an interface to Google Places, and so we typed in Red Robin, and we've got this general manager here. And so we've asking him, sir, is this your Red Robin that we're going to see here? He goes, well, it maybe kind of looks like it, you know. So we click on the thumbnail since it's live, you know. Let's get a little more detail for him. He says, okay, yeah, sure, that is my Red Robin. I mean, that represents it. Sure, okay. So let's see how it is from your perspective. So we're going to go in there. We're actually going to walk around his building to see how this will look from his perspective, and you can see the construction of that bridge that's being proposed. All right, so let's make it relative here. Let's drop a body in, and let's get it from this particular individual's perspective so that we can give it how it is from that particular person's perspective in the yard. So now we're going to go down there and see. And so hopefully by doing it this, now you're going to actually change change the type of conversation. Maybe he's gonna say, hey, is this all? Aren't you guys gonna put a wall or some bushes or something? Or maybe a tree? You just can't leave it like this. But again, this type of technology allows you to change and have a different dialogue, but also to get decisions done in a lot quicker fashion, not saying, hey, let me get back to you in a week or two or a month. You go, okay, let me draw something out, let's see if we can come to an agreement.
It's cloudy, does he put his hand down?
Okay, Craig, now I've gone over with Danny.
Well, you can leave.
It's a little late for this.
So what I also wanted to do to show that it's not just about roads. This is something that can be done in an urban environment too. And here we just took an example of a flat file here, and just to show you just some of the other types of capabilities. You've seen it around a road, but okay, you see a building on a map, and maybe you want to, maybe you're just working on an intersection and showing someone what you're planning to do, but you want to make it as realistic as possible that you want to convey to the audience that you're communicating to. Again, whether it's internal or external. And then so it's just showing you how quickly it is that you can make adjustments to your picture. So the roof was flat before, now you're actually going to change the slope of it. The material. So it's not all just about roads. I mean, so we're visual people. I mean, that we want to, as much, just depending on the audience and who you want to convey to, you can go into as little or as much detail here. And here, just for trees, maybe I can do them individually, or with the sleight of a hand. My type of artist rendering, I'm stick figures, but with something like this, it makes things a tad easier here, what you're trying to convey. Maybe you were supposed to have a little pond somewhere. So it actually allows you, again, to emulate what you want to emulate. Green water.
Are we still in Arkansas?
No, we left Arkansas. We took an exit there. So again, it's just allows you to get that scenery done. It helps you win that business or convey that audience what you're trying to do. And this should be something that you guys have seen over and over again in the other sessions that other people have conveyed to you as well too. Again, what I wanted to convey is examples of visualizations from a visualization role, a planner's role, and how a design engineer can convey information back to those particular roles and also receive that information, and also from a business owner's perspective.
Craig, can you go to 3ds Max in from InfoWorks?
I found that out yesterday. Yes, you can. The information can go back and forth.
And how?
I don't know the exact details. I have to get one of my smart guys.
Yeah.
I figured it would.
Oh, there's. I'm sorry. Okay, no fake raising hands here.
You mentioned before one of your smart guys designed, I guess it's an interface to Google Maps.
Yes.
Was that a script or a macro? Is that a default that's built into InfoWorks?
It's just something that they can show you how to do if you wanted to do the same thing. It's an open API.